In the rolling hills of Tappahannock County, Virginia, in a town most people have never heard of, a star was born. But this isn't just another rags-to-riches story. This is the tale of Christopher Maurice Brown, a journey of extraordinary talent, meteoric rise, devastating fall, and an ongoing quest for redemption that continues to captivate and divide the world. Chris Brown, The Complicated Legacy. Tappahannock, Virginia. Population, 2,375. In 1989, this sleepy riverside town welcomed a boy who would one day sell over 140 million records worldwide. But Chris Brown's childhood was far from the glamorous life he would later lead. Raised by his mother, Joyce Hawkins, after his father abandoned the family, Chris found solace in two things: music and movement. By age 2, he was already mimicking Michael Jackson's dance moves. By age 11, he was teaching himself to sing by listening to soul legends like Sam Cooke and Stevie Wonder. But fate works in mysterious ways. In 2002, 13-year-old Chris was discovered at his father's gas station by Hit Mission Records scout Tina Davis. One impromptu audition later, and the boy from Tappahannock was on his way to New York City. The journey from small-town Virginia to the concrete jungle of Manhattan represented more than just miles traveled. It was the first transformation of many in Chris Brown's complicated story. By 2004, 15-year-old Chris had caught the attention of Jive Records, the same label that launched careers of Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake. But could this teenager from Virginia capture lightning in a bottle? The answer came thundering through radio speakers worldwide in 2005. Run It didn't just announce Chris Brown's arrival. It kicked down the door. The track shot straight to #1, making Chris the first male artist since Montel Jordan to top the Billboard Hot 100 with his debut single. What followed was a whirlwind that defied all expectations. His self-titled debut album went double platinum. The kid could sing like an angel, dance like lightning, and possessed a charisma that seemed to hypnotize audiences. He wasn't just following in Michael Jackson's footsteps. He was creating his own path. With hits like Yo, Excuse Me Miss, and Gimme That, Chris proved he wasn't a one-hit wonder. But it was his live performances that truly set him apart. When he moonwalked across stages and spun through the air with impossible precision, you could see the future of entertainment unfolding before your eyes. 2007's Exclusive cemented his status as pop royalty. Kiss Kiss, With You, and Forever dominated airwaves, while his dance moves became viral sensations before viral was even a thing. Chris Brown wasn't just making music, he was creating cultural moments. By 2009, Chris Brown stood at the summit of entertainment. At just 20 years old, he had conquered music, was making moves in Hollywood with films like Stomp the Yard, and seemed destined for legendary status. He was dating pop princess Rihanna, and together they appeared unstoppable. But sometimes, the higher you climb, the harder you fall. And on February 8th, 2009, Chris Brown's world and his carefully crafted image would shatter in a single, devastating moment. The details of what happened between Chris and Rihanna that night before the Grammy Awards would forever change both of their lives. In an instant, the golden boy of R&B became one of the most controversial figures in entertainment history. The fallout was swift and merciless. Radio stations pulled his music. Sponsors dropped him. The Grammy performance that was supposed to be his coronation was canceled. Chris pleaded guilty to felony assault and was sentenced to community service and probation. The boy who once seemed untouchable had fallen further than anyone thought possible. This story of redemption and controversy is far from over. If you're finding this deep dive into one of music's most complex figures fascinating, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more celebrity documentaries that explore the real stories behind the headlines. For most artists, the story would end here. But Chris Brown's talent was undeniable, and his determination to rebuild proved equally powerful. The road to redemption would be long, bumpy, and filled with setbacks that seemed to push him backward just as he gained forward momentum. His 2009 album Graffiti reflected his turmoil, but failed to connect with audiences. Critics and fans alike seemed unwilling to separate the art from the artist. But Chris refused to disappear into obscurity. Then came 2011's Fame, an album title that stood for Forgiving All My Enemies. The record was Chris's defiant declaration that he wouldn't be defined solely by his lowest moment. Tracks like Look at Me Now and Beautiful People showcased an artist who had evolved, matured, but retained all the raw talent that made him special. The ultimate vindication came at the 2012 Grammys when Fame won Best R&B Album. As Chris took the stage to accept his award, the standing ovation from his peers sent a clear message. Talent, when combined with genuine effort to change, could overcome even the darkest chapters. Albums like Fortune, X, Royalty, and Heartbreak on a Full Moon proved his creative well hadn't run dry. Collaborations with artists like Lil Wayne, Justin Bieber, and even former rivals showed that the industry, slowly but surely, was willing to work with him again. But Chris Brown's story has never been simple, and his journey toward complete redemption has been marked by recurring obstacles. Legal troubles seem to follow him like a shadow. Assault allegations, probation violations, custody battles, and property disputes created a pattern that his critics seized upon. Even as his music continued to chart and his performances drew massive crowds, questions about his ability to fully leave his past behind lingered. Then, in early 2025, those questions became louder than ever. A new legal case emerged from an alleged incident at a Manchester nightclub, once again thrusting Chris into the center of controversy. The details remain under investigation, but the familiar cycle of allegations, denials, and public judgment began anew. For fans and critics alike, it raised uncomfortable questions about whether true change is possible, or if some patterns are simply too ingrained to break. As we look back on Chris Brown's extraordinary and turbulent journey, we're confronted with one of entertainment's most complex legacies. Here is an artist whose talent is undeniable, a performer who can sing, dance, and act with equal mastery. His influence on contemporary R&B and pop music is immeasurable, inspiring countless artists who followed his footsteps. His music has provided the soundtrack to millions of lives. His dance moves have been imitated worldwide, and his artistic evolution has shown remarkable range and depth. Albums like Fame, X, and Indigo prove that creativity and controversy can coexist, even when they create uncomfortable tensions. Yet the question remains, can we separate the artist from their actions? Should we? Chris Brown's story forces us to grapple with questions about forgiveness, second chances, and the complicated relationship between talent and character. His supporters point to his community service, his role as a father, and his continued musical excellence. His critics argue that talent doesn't excuse behavior, and that true accountability requires more than apologies. Stories like Chris Brown's remind us that celebrity lives are never as simple as they appear. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of music's most controversial figures, subscribe for more documentaries that explore the complex realities behind the fame. Whatever your opinion of Chris Brown, his impact on music and popular culture is undeniable. From a small-town boy with impossible dreams to the global superstar wrestling with his demons, his story continues to unfold. The final chapter hasn't been written yet, so we leave you with this question. When we look at Chris Brown's legacy, the soaring highs, the devastating lows, the ongoing struggle for redemption, what do we see? A cautionary tale about the price of fame? A story of resilience and second chances? Or perhaps something more complex than either extreme? The answer, like Chris Brown himself, might be more complicated than we're comfortable admitting.